Stop wasting your life energy on items that are designed to keep you broke, and start identifying the hidden traps that are currently draining your bank account. The hard data extracted from millions of failed financial lives reveals a truth that remains absolutely undeniable. The majority of individuals struggle financially not due to a stagnant lack of revenue. They remain trapped in a cycle of poverty because they repeatedly surrender their hard-earned cash to toxic, depreciating assets. That assertion sounds incredibly blunt, and it truly is, yet it remains dangerous because these financial landmines never look like threats when you swipe your card. They seem completely standard and even desirable. Your entire social circle is acquiring them without a second thought. Our modern consumer culture celebrates these self-sabotaging choices as milestones of success. Aggressive marketing campaigns frame these liabilities as the ultimate symbols of a life well lived. And for a specific period, they might actually improve your mood until you realize they have been quietly bleeding your future dry year after year. It happens in the same way that a hidden parasite consumes its host, silently, deep within the system, and then ending with a sudden and total economic collapse. By the moment you perceive the structural decay, the core stability is already ruined. Today, I want to highlight 5 specific categories most people fund without a single doubt. Expenses that appear benign or perhaps even essential. However, if your mission is to generate genuine prosperity, the kind that grows into total independence, you must cease these purchases. Not eventually, but right this very second. And I am not talking about tiny daily luxuries. I am addressing massive wealth destroyers. Decisions that might strip you of hundreds of thousands and frequently millions throughout the duration of your career. Think first of the most common and, in our contemporary world, the most frequent destroyer of capital: new automobiles. Now, the predictable pushback is easy to anticipate. Everyone requires a vehicle for navigating life. How can a shiny new vehicle be a silent assassin of your financial freedom? The explanation is quite elementary. It is not the vehicle itself. It is the specific decision to acquire it in a new condition. Driving a factory-fresh car off the lot is one of the most violent financial self-inflicted wounds the average person routinely suffers, and millions of people do exactly this every single year. They walk into a dealership, get blinded by the prestige of a new license plate, and leave having traded years of future labor for a fleeting rush of dopamine. Here is the reason why it is so catastrophic. The second you navigate a new car onto the public road, its market value plummets, usually by 15% to 20% immediately. Before you have even reached your driveway, you have already forfeited thousands of dollars in net worth. Over the subsequent 60 months, the erosion of value only intensifies. Many vehicles will lose approximately 65% of their original price during that time frame. Consequently, a $50,000 vehicle transforms into an $17,500 vehicle. That is $32,500 evaporated simply because you chose to own it first. And that is the most optimistic scenario because the vast majority of consumers do not use cash. They sign away their future earnings on a high-interest loan, which means they are not just losing money to depreciation. They are also handing over a massive premium to the bank for a dying asset. Let us analyze the full mathematics. You purchase a $50,000 car. You fund it over 5 years at a 6% interest rate. Your monthly commitment is approximately $966. Over those 5 years, you pay a total of roughly $58,000. And at the conclusion of that term, the vehicle is worth maybe $17,500. So you sacrificed $58,000 to end up holding an asset valued at $17,500. That represents a loss of roughly $40,500, a staggering sum from one solitary mistake. Now, here is the variable most people fail to identify, and it is the only one that truly matters: opportunity cost. That same $40,000, if directed into a productive investment, instead of being incinerated by depreciation and interest, even at a standard historical return of 10%, can swell to nearly $700,000 over 3 decades, most of $1 million lost due to one vehicle choice. And this is rarely a one-time event, is it? Most individuals repeat this destructive cycle every few years. Throughout a lifetime, that might mean 6 or 7 rounds of waste. Each cycle devours capital that should have been compounding into permanent financial freedom. The most disciplined wealth builders never touch brand new metal, not when they are starting out, and certainly not once they have arrived. They prioritize pre-owned, sturdy, functional, and humble vehicles, and operate them until the maintenance costs exceed their utility. Observers often find this behavior peculiar. They might ask, if someone has achieved significant financial status, why do they drive an aging vehicle? And the logic is clear. A car is a mode of transit. It delivers you from your origin to your destination. A new car does not fulfill that fundamental requirement significantly better than a carefully selected used one. Therefore, why would anyone pay a massive premium for the sake of novelty? That is the required mental transition. A vehicle is not a status symbol. It is not evidence of your achievement. It is a tool, and it is a tool that rapidly loses value. So if you wish to accumulate wealth, stop treating cars like trophies. View them as industrial equipment. Buy a dependable used vehicle that is 5 to 7 years old. Pay with cash whenever possible. Drive it for a decade or longer. And invest every cent you would have wasted on massive payments, inflated insurance, higher taxes, and the endless cycle of trading up. That single consistent habit can alter the entire destiny of your financial existence. Shift your focus now to the second silent saboteur of spending that silently sabotages the creation of wealth, a residence that is far too extravagant for your actual revenue. Let the reality of the situation be perfectly transparent. It is not being suggested that you should avoid buying property. Owning your own home can be an incredibly wise financial move if it is executed with intelligence. The tragedy is that most people do not just buy a shelter, they purchase a monument to their own vanity. They push their finances to the absolute limit that a lending institution will authorize. And banks are desperate to approve massive mortgages, not to help you build equity, but to lock you into 30 years of guaranteed interest payments. They do not care if your monthly bills leave you with zero capital to invest. They are indifferent to whether you become house poor and trapped within your own 4 walls. Here is the common scenario. A lender informs a person earning $110,000 annually that they can qualify for a $500,000 property. The borrower hears this approval and interprets it as a sign of financial strength, so they buy the $500,000 house. That is a massive blunder. Just because a corporation is willing to lend you capital does not mean you should actually accept it. Bank qualification algorithms are built to safeguard the lender and maximize their profits, not to optimize your long-term prosperity. A $500,000 residence with a 20% down payment results in a $400,000 mortgage. At a 5% interest rate over 30 years, the base payment sits around $2,147 every month. Then you include property taxes, insurance premiums, and upkeep costs, and you are easily looking at $3,200 to $3,500 per month. That amounts to $38,000 to $42,000 a year on a $110,000 gross salary. After the government takes its share of taxes, this can swallow 50% or more of your actual take-home income. So, what remains for your investment portfolio? Almost nothing. That is the hidden trap. You might look extremely successful to your neighbors because you own a massive estate, while in reality, you are cash-deprived, shackled to monthly debts with your money buried in equity you cannot touch without selling or borrowing more. Smart investors typically purchase their own residence for a modest sum that allows for liquidity. They might easily qualify for something much more grand, but they choose to refuse to buy more because they simply do not require excessive space. A quality home in a stable neighborhood is sufficient for true needs, and because their shelter costs remain minimal, They have liquid capital, available capital that can then be directed into the stock market and private enterprises. That is the mechanism of wealth creation. It is not achieved by chasing the largest house the bank allows, but by inhabiting a practical home and investing the surplus. Here is the housing guideline that has proven effective over time. Your residence should never cost more than 2.5 times your annual salary, ideally even less. If your income is $100,000, your search should be limited to the $250,000 range, not $500,000. And you should provide at least a 20% down payment to eliminate unnecessary insurance fees. You should also strive for a 15-year loan term rather than 30 years. The objective is quite simple. You want to erase interest expenses as fast as possible instead of subsidizing a bank for decades. Most people do the exact opposite of this advice. They purchase the most expensive mansion their credit allows, use the smallest possible down payment, lock themselves into a 30-year debt cycle, and then wonder why they never get ahead. Your home should be a foundation that supports wealth, not a weight that crushes it. It should be a place to reside, not a financial anchor that pulls you down with endless bills and repairs. If you want to become wealthy, stop purchasing houses that stretch your cash flow to the breaking point. Buy significantly less house than you can actually afford. Then, take the savings from lower taxes, insurance, and maintenance and put them into the market. Over 30 years, the gap between a sensible home and an oversized one is not just aesthetic. It can easily represent over $1 million in missed investment appreciation. That is the true price tag of an oversized home. Look past the walls for a moment into the third category, one that often shocks people because it feels relatively trivial: brand new furniture and interior decor. Home furnishings do not appear to be a major drain initially, but the costs mount up with incredible speed. A designer sofa costs $3,000. A dining set adds another $4,000. Master bedroom sets can run several thousand more. Once you add in carpets, lighting, art, and decorative accents, you have suddenly spent $30,000 or $50,000 just to fill a house. And what have you actually gained? Furniture serves a very utilitarian purpose. You sit upon it. You dine at it. You rest in it. New furniture does not fulfill these basic human needs any better than furniture that was previously owned. The massive price difference is purely a tax on your ego and a hunger for social validation. People burn their potential savings because they are terrified that guests might judge their living room if it is not showroom perfect. They seek social validation. Retailers exploit this insecurity by pushing interest-free financing that hides the fact that you are overpaying for wood and fabric. So now you are paying interest on items that are losing value every single day. Furniture loses its worth quickly, not quite as fast as cars, but it still depreciates, especially modern pieces built with cheap materials meant for disposal. Here is how wealthy people actually furnish their lives. They buy high-quality used furniture. They visit estate auctions, garage sales, and premium second-hand marketplaces. They prioritize solid craftsmanship over trendy brand names. They discover superior items at a tiny fraction of the retail cost. Or if they do buy new, they do it gradually over years rather than all at once. They begin with the bare essentials and add pieces only when they have the cash ready. They never furnish an entire residence in one weekend using a store credit card. Durable furniture should be owned for several decades. High-quality pieces found used often outlast new trends. Well-made furniture can serve its purpose perfectly for a lifetime. It is difficult to grasp the logic of replacing a functional table just because a new style is in fashion. Let us look at the real numbers. Imagine you spend $40,000 outfitting your home with brand new retail furniture. That is a very common figure for middle-class families today. If instead, you furnish that same home with quality used items for $10,000, which is easily done with some patience, you save $30,000. Now invest that $30,000 at a 10% annual return. Over 30 years, it grows into roughly $523,000, over $500,000 simply by choosing used furniture over new. That is not a small amount. That is not a rounding error. That is substantial capital. That is freedom. Most people will refuse to do this. They think used furniture implies they are failing or compromising on quality. They want everything to be sterile and fresh. And they pay a massive premium for that ego, a cost that compounds against their future for 40 years. If you want to get rich, stop buying new furniture by default. Buy used. Buy slowly. Buy only what is necessary for your life. Then invest the difference. Your sofa does not care about your net worth, but your retirement account certainly does. Keep that momentum going as we hit the fourth category, perhaps the most widespread drain on wealth in modern society: the constant upgrade cycle of personal technology. You are trapped in a digital treadmill where billion-dollar corporations convince you that your current device is obsolete every 12 months. The latest smartphone released every autumn. A new laptop even though the current one is fast enough. The true danger lies in the hidden ecosystem of recurring app subscriptions and premium service tiers that bleed your account dry. But here is the cold reality. You do not actually need most of these things. These acquisitions are not necessities. They are desires, and they are expensive desires that become technologically obsolete almost instantly. A top-tier smartphone now costs over $1,100. Every single year, a new version is marketed, and millions of people trade in devices that still work perfectly. If you simply slow down your upgrades, buying a phone every 3 years instead of every year, you save roughly $700 annually. Over a 40-year adult life, that is $28,000 in direct savings. But once more, the true figure is not $28,000. It is what that $28,000 would have become if it were working for you. At a 10% annual return over 40 years, that money grows to nearly $1.2 million. Over $1 million just from not upgrading your phone every 12 months. And phones are merely one part of the problem. The same logic applies to computers, televisions, and every other consumer electronic. Corporations have brainwashed people into believing that new is synonymous with necessary. But most annual upgrades offer only tiny improvements that do not change your daily life. A simple functional device often suffices because it makes communication possible. That is the core requirement. People might think this approach is out of touch, but a simplified device costs nothing, requires no constant updates, and does not steal your time or your money. Now, it is not being said everyone should go back to flip phones. For many, a smartphone is a vital tool for work and life, but you do not need the premium version every year. You can keep a device for 5 years. You can purchase a previous generation model at a steep discount. You can maintain your hardware so it lasts as long as possible. The same rule applies to your computer. A 3-year-old laptop can handle almost every task the average person requires, unless your profession literally depends on the fastest possible processor. Constant upgrades are a vanity project. Most people do not upgrade because of a technical failure. They upgrade because they want the excitement of something new. They want to feel modern. Because marketing has tricked them into thinking anything older than a year is garbage. People who build wealth ignore that noise. They view technology as a utility, not a badge of honor. They use a tool until it is truly broken or until it can no longer perform its job. If you want to be rich, stop chasing the newest gadgets. Use what you already have. Buy refurbished or older models. Resist the urge to buy just because a commercial told you to. Every dollar you do not waste on an unneeded gadget is a dollar that can grow for you. Over several decades, those dollars turn into a fortune. Technology should increase your efficiency. If it is only increasing your debt, then you are not using it. It is using you. This leads us to the final category, the one that usually makes people uncomfortable, and that is luxury experiences that you cannot actually afford. I am referring to the 5-star vacations, the first-class airfare, the designer dining, the VIP events, and the luxury cruises. These are the status-driven traps people fall into while charging their memories to high-interest credit cards. Let the distinction be clear. It is one thing to travel, but it is another to perform a lifestyle for social media using money you do not have. No one is suggesting you should never enjoy your life. It is not a stance against seeing the world. It is not an argument against having great experiences. What is being warned against is the dangerous habit of status consumption in credit that vaporizes your long-term security. Most people fail to see that line. They see their peers posting photos from exotic beaches on social media. They feel a social pressure to match that lifestyle, so they book a trip they cannot afford, often charging it to a credit card. A single high-end vacation can easily drain $10,000 or $15,000 in a single week. 1 week of fun and then it is gone. All that remains are digital photos, vague memories, and a mountain of debt. People like to ignore the debt part, but the interest does not ignore them. What is truly tragic is how this spending replaces actual investing. I've met countless people who will spend $12,000 on a cruise and then claim they don't have enough to fund their retirement accounts. They say they cannot afford to save, yet they can afford a luxury suite. That is not a lack of money. That is a failure of priorities. They are choosing a temporary high over a permanent safety net. 1 week of luxury over 30 years of freedom. The point is not to stay home. The point is to travel within your actual means. If you cannot pay for the entire trip in cash without slowing down your investments, you cannot afford it. You want to see the world. Excellent. There are thousands of ways to travel without ruining your future. You can drive instead of flying. You can stay in modest rentals instead of resorts. You can buy groceries instead of eating at expensive restaurants. Budget travel can be just as enriching and memorable as the luxury version. Extravagant vacations are rarely mandatory. Traveling for purpose is expected, but there is no need for 5-star hotels or first-class cabins. A hotel is just a room to sleep in. A first-class seat arrives at the airport at the exact same time as the economy seat. As for the luxury cruises, the math is simply hard to justify. But setting personal tastes aside, the math is what matters. Imagine someone spends $20,000 a year on 2 major luxury trips. Over 30 years, that is $600,000 out of pocket. Now, imagine they took modest trips for $5,000 and invested the remaining $15,000 annually at 10%. Over 30 years, that money swells to roughly $2.4 million. That is the true cost of those vacations. Not just the cash you spent, but the massive wealth you prevented from ever being born. And here is the secret. Expensive trips are not more meaningful. Some of the greatest memories often come from simple camping trips and time spent with loved ones without any flashiness. Meanwhile, it is common to see people spend $25,000 on a trip they had forgotten a year later. The value of an experience is not found in the price tag, but your financial future certainly is. So, if you want to be rich, stop buying luxury experiences you cannot afford. Travel within your budget. Make memories that do not require a loan. Invest the difference. The peace that comes from wealth lasts much longer than any vacation ever will. Take a breath here and let this sink in because this is vital. If your goal is to be wealthy, you have to break the cycle of buying things to impress people you do not even like. First, new cars. Buy high-quality used ones and drive them for as long as possible. This one habit can be the difference between being broke and being a millionaire. Second, houses that are too large. Buy a modest home that costs much less than you qualify for. Keep your housing costs tiny so your investment budget can be huge. Third, brand new furniture. Buy used items. Buy them slowly. Buy only what you need. The money you save will compound into a fortune. Fourth, the latest technology. Stop the endless upgrade cycle and cancel the predatory subscriptions that are nibbling away at your net worth. Fifth, luxury experiences you cannot afford. Enjoy your life, but do it in a way that is sustainable and smart. If you stop these 5 habits, you are not just saving money, you are redirecting your destiny. Over a lifetime, that redirection means millions of dollars in extra wealth. The difficult part is not the math, it is the discipline. These purchases seem normal because every person you know is making them. Our society demands them. You will feel like you are missing out on the fun. You might feel like you are being too frugal. You will definitely be judged by others. People will think you are being cheap. They will ask why you drive an old car, live in a small house, or skip the fancy trips. But you have to decide what is more important to you. Is it the approval of people who are likely broke themselves, or is it your own financial freedom? The decision to choose long-term power over short-term status should be made as early as possible. There is no regret in that decision, not even for a second. The power to do whatever you want with your time is worth more than any car or any mansion. You can make that same choice for yourself. Starting today, you can choose to stop buying the things that kill wealth and start buying the things that build it. It will not be simple. It requires a lot of patience. It requires being comfortable with being different, but it works every single time. The secret to wealth is not just about your paycheck. Many people with huge salaries are still living paycheck to paycheck. The secret is refusing to spend your capital on things that do not grow. Stop buying the things that destroy your future. Start buying the things that create it. That is the path. That is the formula. That is how real wealth is created.